Okay, we're rolling. Welcome back to the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. This is episode 24. Excited to be back for another episode. My name is Josh. I'm here, as always, with Troy. What's up, good buddy?
Not much. Just got back from a coaches meeting for the Minnetonka high school team. So good conversation, getting ready for the season start. Practice, or actually it should tryout/practice start in 2 weeks.
Wow. I got excited for a second there. When you said Minnesota, I thought the Wild was going to hire you to be the goalie coach and fix some of our issues that we're having between the pipes there.
Yeah, they got a good goalie coach. Freddie Chabot's awesome.
Yeah, we got to do something. 20 goals in 3 games, not great. But I'm committed, Troy, that we're not going to make this a Wild Wine Line podcast. So we'll keep it to a minimum this week. We also have a ton to get to.
Yep.
So we should try to get through, I guess, all of our introductory stuff as soon as we can. One quick thing I want to mention, thank you to everyone that has supported us through Patreon. There's still time to take advantage of our out of 99 tier. You can be one of the first 99 supporters and forever have that title. You get exclusive access to the Gong Show Discord, where it gives you basically insider access to participate with our show and meet like-minded collectors. And I think we're building a pretty fun community there. Choosing to support us helps in a lot of ways, really. It helps us cover expenses because, believe it or not, putting on a podcast isn't free. It helps us to continue to produce more and better hockey card content, and it'll help us fund initiatives that we have planned to help grow the hockey card hobby. So thank you, everyone, for your consideration. And if you're interested in supporting us in Patreon, the link is in the show description. You can find it in our profile on Instagram or search for Hockey Cards Gong Show on the Patreon website. Okay, Troy, let's roll with the game plan.
On today's show, we begin with a new segment that will look at the greatest player to wear the number that matches our episode number, along with some of their card values. We then continue our focus on movers and shakers from the beginning of the NHL season. Next, it's off to hobby news. We follow this with a discussion on 101 cards, and we will end the show with a look at new product releases and our first ever mailbag segment. Exciting stuff there. So I'll just keep rolling because I'm going to kind of lead us into the vintage topic, which is Josh and I were kind of thinking we want to get more vintage on the podcast. So we were kind of spitballing ideas. And one of those ideas I think I threw out was, well, why don't we do whatever episode number we're on? We'll look at a list of like the greatest players to wear that number, because more than likely it's a vintage player. And we do a little analysis around their cards and their playing history. And Josh said, great. And then immediately said, well, if you remember Sports Card Nobody, who has a podcast. And the minute he started talking, I was like, right in my head, I was like, oh man, I knew it. I remember I probably heard this segment somewhere. And I was thinking in my head, it was just this great original idea. But no, Sports Card Nobody podcast, friend of the show, Shane, he actually does something very similar. So we reached out, kind of asked for his blessing to do this, and he was very gracious and accommodating and said, sure, go for it. So that's kind of the catalyst that led us to start this new segment idea. Is that how you remember it, Josh?
Oh, yeah. Hey, sometimes the best ideas are borrowed, and we're definitely grateful to Shane. He was gracious enough to have me on his podcast a week or so ago. He's got a great show, so be sure to check out the Sports Card Nobody podcast. And again, thanks to him for letting us do this, or borrow this idea, steal it, I guess, however you want to put it. But I think, Troy, one thing I'll echo in what you said is we are looking for more and more ways to introduce vintage topics into the show. And this is one idea we were excited about.
Definitely. So thank you again, Shane, for kind of giving us your blessing and for coming up with the idea. All right, so let's begin. First, the caveat around this is I'm using a list that was published on July 4th, 2022 by the Hockey Writers website, and it was called The Greatest NHL Player for Each Jersey Number. You can just Google that article if you want to check it out, and you will see. You'll probably have a nice list of what's coming up. So for episode 24, per the list, the greatest player to wear number 24 based on the article, and I was going to ask Josh what it was, but he already knows it because we kind of talked about it. It will be Chris Chelios. So, Josh, you got to be excited about that. You were a Detroit fan. You had to see him play a little bit when he was with Detroit, right?
Yeah, when I was growing up, my dad lived in Toledo, Ohio, which, if anyone is familiar with that area, is about an hour south of Detroit Metro. and he had Red Wings season tickets. And so I got to go to a number of games, got to see the Russian Vibe play in person, which was very cool. I was pretty young at the time. And my only other claim to fame, I guess, is I was a caddy when I was a kid at local country clubs, and I did caddy for Stevie Y once. So
nice. So at that time, you never knew at one day you would have a podcast talking about hockey cards and these players that you watched as a kid, you'd start talking about them.
Nope.
All right, so let's start. Chelios played 1,651 games, which is ninth all time over a 26-year career, which ties him with Gordie Howe for the most years played. He played 7 years in Montreal, 9 years in Chicago, 10 years with Detroit, and I forgot about this, 1 year with the Atlanta Thrashers. I believe that season he started in the AHL. They gave him like a pro tryout contract, and he actually got called up eventually. He is a Hall of Famer, 3-time Cup winner, once with Montreal and 2 with Detroit, 3-time Norris Trophy winner for Best Defenseman. He made the 84-85 All-Rookie team, and he was the 2006-07 Marc Messier Award winner. Over his career, he scored 185 goals during the regular season, 763 assists for 948 points, which puts him at about 0.57 points per game player. He also had 2,891 penalty minutes, which puts him 12th all time. So definitely a very physical player. Wasn't afraid to throw his body around. I'm sure Flyers fans remember him. I think, or it was the Flyers? I can't remember. Brian Propp, I think he gave a nice hit to, and a couple other people. So he definitely has that grit to his game. He made the playoffs in 24 of his NHL seasons. Played 266 games, which is first all time, had 31 goals, 113 assists, and 144 points. So that's kind of the little stat overview of Chris Chelios. Anything jump out at you, Josh? Or
no, what I'm thinking about, and I'll admit off the bat, I don't remember, but I'm curious to see if you do. Do you remember where we had him in our Mount Rushmore of defensemen? I know he didn't make the list. And then he didn't even make the top 5 because we had your whole Larry Robinson emotional kind of situation.
The emotional plea? No, I don't.
Emotional
I remember,
plea.
Yeah, I remember looking him up, and just he never made the Mount Rushmore, but he was definitely looked at from.
I think one of us had to have nominated him, right?
Maybe. I should have researched this before.
The other thing then I keep thinking about as you're talking about Chelios is, and I think you're going to mention this, but he's like the super tan guy on the ESPN broadcast.
Yes, he's very
like, tan. Does he live in a tanning bed and then they just take him out and put him on set and then he goes immediately back to the tanning bed after that?
Well, I'll say about him is he looks like he is living his best life and
sure,
looks extremely healthy. And I know I think I might mention it, but if not, he's kind of a workout fiend. He's still at his playing weight. He looks like he's loving life, and why not? Cush little analyst job on NHL. What's not to love? So, all right. So during his early days, he was definitely known for his offensive abilities. But the caveat with that is a lot of people would say he's not the most pretty offensive defenseman. I think it was Roenick that kind of mentioned that he would just kind of lumber like he was clopping down the ice. And
it's Puppy Harley. Just a minute. It's Puppy Harley. It's okay. Yep. Troy's dog had to join the show. She doesn't. She's a Mastiff, and she's very jealous, apparently, of Chris Chelios.
Yeah,
and
so okay.
does not want us to talk about him.
Apologies for that if you picked that up in the background. All right, so he was an offensive defenseman around his first 7 or 8 years. And if you look at stats, he actually scored a lot. As his career progressed and he went to Detroit with a highly skilled team, obviously, he kind of shifted his responsibilities where he didn't need to be such an offensive threat. He was more a defensive-minded defenseman. He had a career plus-minus of .351, definitely known for his physicality, not afraid to play a hard-nosed style. He was one of those players that you hated if he played against your team, but loved if he played for your team. He was known for his loyalty as a teammate and helping out anyone who asked. He actually had a lot of respect, even from opponents who maybe hated him just from his off-the-ice stuff. A lot of people really talked about how they respected him. Obviously, he retired. He remains active in hockey to this very day, as we kind of talked about. He was in the front office for the Red Wings. He worked as an analyst for FS1, if you remember that, when they had hockey for a little bit. worked for Chicago as an ambassador, as well as coaching stints with the Red Wings and USA Hockey. And then obviously is currently the tan analyst on ESPN for their hockey coverage. And again, living his best life, looking great.
I think he does a pretty good job on ESPN. What do you think?
I think he does too. I've actually been pretty impressed. And I can't remember, I really liked, not that this relates to Chelios, but PK Subban when he was on. I don't know if he was on TNT or ESPN. I thought he was really good too.
You know what I learned from Chelios? He always gets mad when a team's on a rush and one of the defensemen goes down on the ice to try to block a pass. Apparently, again, I'm no great hockey mind, but according to him, that's a no-no.
So I will agree with him because actually we teach that on our team in high school is any player, you should, obviously I know it works sometimes, but you really should never leave your feet because you just take yourself out of the play. And more than likely, if you're playing against a good team, they'll either just walk around you or they'll fake the shot and now you're out of the play and you're out of position. So I agree with Chelios, but obviously everyone's going to remember some highlight where they saw a guy make this diving block shot and they're like, hey, that's the case against it. But all right, so his cards. So I stuck with his rookie and second year to look at some kind of values and some comps. His rookie card is the 1984-85 OPG. And then for his second year card, I looked at the 85-86 OPG. There's also a tops version. I don't think there's a top version of his rookie card because there was a different number in the set, and I didn't see that he had a tops version of his rookie card. So if you look at values around him, it's kind of interesting. His his rookie card, the 84-85 OPG PSA 10, low pop 65. The last comp that I could find was around $1,072 on June 25th. I don't know off the top of your head if that makes sense. To me, it seems, I don't know, it's kind of in a ballpark I would have thought about, but I'm not 100% sure if I'm on board with it. I see the gears spinning.
Well, I'm just thinking in the context of the values of all vintage cards, it kind of makes sense. But given his stature in the league and the rarity of pop 65 cards, it feels low. What I'm comparing it to is Yzerman, who's right around 4,000.
Yeah.
Right. So the question is he 1/4 the value of Yzerman?
Interesting. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I think honestly, realistically, $1,500 maybe. And this just brings up a whole kind of slew of questions around value that we should probably get into in a later podcast. And what I mean by that is when you say somebody's undervalued, it's technically kind of an oxymoron to do that, right? Because the sports card market is somewhat of a free market system, especially secondary sales. So its value is what people are paying for it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's hard to say it's undervalued. And in that vein, too, it's hard to say, should it be valued more? Maybe the best I can put it to me is I'm sad that it's only worth $1,000.
That's true. Well, you might get more sad here.
Great.
So the same card, his rookie card, the BGS 9.5, which is their GemNet, population count is 113, so more than the PSA 10. The last comp I could really find was $200. And that was on around March of 2022.
That's crazy town.
Yeah, definitely crazy town.
It's not Hockey Town. Now it's crazy town.
Yeah, so that to me was kind of the shocking one where I was like, whoa, $200 for BGS 9.5. And obviously, if anyone sees a different sale, please let me know. But I looked long and hard, and that's, using Card Ladder and even doing some manual searches, and that's the one I found. Let's take a step down, get some more higher pops. His rookie card, the 84-85 OPG PSA 9, has a population of 370. Pricing is about at $150. And that
seems like a good buy to me, too.
That to me is I was going to say, I'm like, I want to go buy that card. I'm going to go look for that card.
That being said, though, if you can find a BGS for $200,
Gem
Mint, that's probably a better play. And it also, to me, here I am thinking while recording, which is probably really dangerous. But we've talked a lot about more modern cards, so cards produced within the last 2, 3, 4 years, and their PSA 9 versus raw value. We should probably look at vintage and try to see where PSA 9 values, because I would hope my hypothesis would be a hope that the same sort of rules, when I know that that's not the case, because I know raw ones you can get for $20-$30, maybe 70 if they look really nice. But in this case, I would really, really hope that a PSA 9 would have good value. And so right now, is it what I'm trying to do the math in my head? Is that like 7x less than the PSA 10?
Yeah.
That maybe, feels maybe 8. I don't know.
It's like 7.
That feels like it's way too big of a gap to me.
Agree. And then if you want to stay at the BGS 9 level, Pop's 49, and that price is like $60. Again, I couldn't find a lot of BGS sales of that card.
Which is weird because they dominated vintage so much.
Well, that's why it looks. I mean, it has a higher pop count, and I'm curious if I just totally missed some or what. But if you look at that rookie card too, if you want to take even the farther step down, which I probably wouldn't, but the PSA 8, which is population of 594, is you can have it for like $35. They're pretty right around that.
At the prices of the 9 and 9.5 and 10, I don't think I'd be interested in an 8.
No. And then raw, if you were just like, I'm going to find a raw version, like Josh said, it they vary widely. If you basically on the picture, a lot of the times it can be $10, $30. It can be $70 if it looks really nice with the centering. So, but
here's one case where I would say, right. So we talk about like those modern cards again.
Yeah.
Where the big hypothesis that us and I know many, many other people have is, well, everybody assumes every card's a 10. Yeah. I wouldn't buy a 84 OPG Yzerman on eBay and assume you're going to get an 8.
No.
I
want to be on any. I would not. I don't care who it is. I'm not buying an 84, 85 thinking I'm getting that.
No. So if that's the case, then maybe $36 for an 8 is a really good value. And if you want something a little higher quality with, again, really low pop counts, 9 or Gem Mint, whatever grading company you go with, is a good deal there.
And then just for kind of posterity's sake or some other additional data points, his second year card is the 85-86 OPG. A PSA 10 of that, the pop's, again, super low, 36, but it can be had. Last sales around $110. You can't even find the BGSs because they're such low pops. It's like a 10 for that second year card. If you want a BGS 9.5, there's 10 of them that I saw graded. So that's kind of his rookie and second year card. And obviously, he's also now. I went and looked because I want to look at. I didn't do his values on this, but he does have more recent cards that have. And obviously, if you listen to the show, I'm one of those suckers for older vintage guys on newer cards. The stuff I found from 2022 and 21, I believe, was just Leaf stuff, so unlicensed. But he was in an Artifacts series, and I can't remember if it was 1920. I can't remember what the actual series was, but it was within the last 2 or 3 years. He had patch autos, and he had cards in there, and they looked really nice. They were really nice. They were super cool. So if you definitely want to go that route, and you're like me, and you like the older guys on newer cards, that's definitely a route you can do. He was in Artifacts, I believe. Now I'm not
quite to the extent of Jerry Cheevers, right?
No, not the Gary Cheevers.
Gary,
it's like every
Jerry,
card coming out of there, he's in it. But that's awesome. I love that stuff. I love the older guys on the newer stuff because I think it's cool. So, anyways, that's kind of the look at Chris Chelios. Obviously, next week will be episode or not. Well, yeah, it will be next week, episode 25. So place your bets or go look at the list if you want to know who number 25 is going to be.
I'm really happy about this. Like I said, though, we've been wanting to get more vintage content, and it's harder than you would think because there's not as much that happens, I guess, on a daily basis with that. Yep. So this is awesome. Okay, let's move on to some movers and shakers. Let's look at our season to date update. Still a whopping, I guess, between 3 and 5 games in between teams. There are a couple, I guess, standouts, both good and bad, that I do want to highlight at this point. Here's something I find super interesting. If you look at the top 4 point leaders right now, they're all players that I would put into like a second or third tier from a hobby perspective. Right, so call them NHL stars or borderline superstars, however you may disagree with that, I get it, but I'm just coming at it more from a hobby value perspective. So these guys are Steven Stamkos, Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, and David Pastrnak. What's crazy to me is that none of their values are moving. So they've started the season at a blistering pace, right? So Stamkos has, I think, 6 goals or something like that. His 2008 Young Gun PSA 10 Pop 350 has no sales since October 9th, where the last one was $389. Panarin has he's got like every assist in the league, it seems like right now. His 2015 Young Gun PSA 10 Pop 748 has been holding around 145 since the start of the season. Few sales. Mika Zibanejad, his 2011 Young Gun PSA 10 Pop 105 is the same, holding around 145. Obviously, both are in the Rangers, so pretty good team. David Pastrnak has had a great start to the season. His 2014 Young Gun Pop PSA 10, or 24 Young Gun PSA 10 Pop 149, last sold for $796 on October 12th. And then the last sale was down about 12%, I think yesterday. So we're recording this on Wednesday, was for $700. So again, not a huge drop, 12%. But my kind of question is, what do these guys got to do at this point to see their values increase? Maybe it's just, well, it's been a week. Let's see what it is a month from now. Mm-hmm. But they all kind of, to me, Troy, fit into this category that I don't even have a great way, I don't think, to describe. In players that are super good, they just don't have that hype factor around their card values where, and I think Stamkos, to me, would be the number one head scratcher in that case.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. I think you're right on the whole. They're in that tier where we're so focused on hype. We've talked about it so many times, and the Kaprizovs, all those guys, the Laffies, the hype trains are on them because they're recent players or rookie years, and then you get these guys that are established and having great years, but they're not in that same level of hype, and they just kind of fall down to this, like you said, the next tier of super. I don't know, middling superstar. I don't know what you call them, but yeah, I think you're dead on with just how. It is kind of surprising that the values aren't moving, but again, it's the first week and a half. Maybe the market just wants to see them keep producing before the moves start happening.
One thing I think that is worth mentioning along these lines is when we did look at values last offseason and then the beginning of last season and how when we looked at the offseason dip and when the sales rebounded, all that sort of stuff, what I found was that values really started to rebound and kind of accelerate at the very end of October, beginning of November. And I guess I interpreted that as, well, people want to see the season kind of get underway for a few weeks and figure out who is going to have maybe staying power atop the leaderboard or is really kind of set up to have a great season, maybe not just a great week. But so that could be part of it. But we're also in a totally different economy in sports card market too. So it's really hard to juggle all the variables. So again, I just thought that those guys were pretty interesting because they all kind of fit in that same group to me, that kind of second tier or third tier, some maybe hobby value. Let's look at a couple other guys that I think are playing really well and deserve a quick mention. So first of all, Elias Pettersson from Vancouver, 6 points through 3 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. His 2018 Young Gun PSA 10 Pop 1648 is, again, just like Zibanejad and Panarin, is holding par from where it was at the beginning of the season. So it's right around $165. A couple of younger guys that I think are worth looking at. Gabe Vilardi, 7 points through 5 games. It's interesting that the Kings have played a lot of games so far. Where some teams like the Wild have played 3. So he's got 4 goals, 3 assists. You look at his 2020 Young Guns base, that was selling in the $1 to $2 range before the season, is now in the $6 to $7 range.
Okay.
So there's been on the low end of the value spectrum of cards, I guess, but people seem to be jumping on those, and very well, very deserved given the start he's had. Another guy we've talked about a little bit before, Rasmus Dahlin, the former number 1 overall pick, leads the Sabres in goals and points through 3 games with 3 goals and an assist. His 2018 Young Gun PSA 10 Pop 856 is starting to creep up a little bit. I'd say Troy's up about $10 to $15 US dollars from the start of the season. Last sale was 131, and his raw values right now are in the $20 range. Any other guys sticking out to you so far?
No,
plus side.
I didn't do too much research. Obviously, the guys you hit, obviously, I thought about, but like I said last show, I'm still surprised Sidney Crosby's doing well. I always think this is the year he's going to slow down, but I was just looking up his stats. 3 games played, he's got 6 points already.
Crazy. Okay, I want to talk about a couple guys on the slow start side of the spectrum. Big caveat here, it's only a couple games. I almost even hate doing this, but there are a couple that I think are worth mentioning because of the hype that they came into the season with. Fully acknowledging that in the next week they could score 10 goals each or something like that, right? So again, I don't think anyone should be in panic mode, but first guy I look at is somebody I'm really high on this year and still hopeful is going to have a great year and kind of break into that next level, and that's Jack Hughes from the New Jersey Devils. So far, he's got 2 points with 2 assists in 3 games, no goals, of course. His 2019 Young Gun PSA 10 popped 2,136, so a little bit of a higher pop count there. Is down about $10 since the start of the season. Right now, selling around the $238 US dollar range. The other guy we did a social media post about today that got a lot of reaction, and this one is a little alarming.
Yeah, I was going to say about the social media post, all the reaction you got. And again, I think everyone read it right. You weren't saying like, "Oh my God, the sky's falling." It was just let's have a thought exercise and kind of think about him and his play and how does that lead to current values and going forward.
Yeah, his Mo Sider's 2021 Young Gun values are hurting. I guess that's the kindest I can put it. And they've gone down really fast. So if you look at, interestingly enough, again, his raw sales I think are down less than his graded cards. So last raw sales were for 68, but then 45 before that. Jeepers. This is where it gets crazy. His last Young Gun PSA 10 sales, I looked at like the last 4 or 5 sales. They've averaged about $211 a month ago. Again, averaging from the same time period, the recent 4 or 5 sales, they were averaging like 356. So he's down about 40% in a month. And I mean, I get it. He's pointless through 3 games, but he's also plays defense, and it's 3 games. And a lot of people have chimed in that have watched him play and say he's playing solid. He's doing great defensively, probably moving the puck, all those sort of things. But the $64,000 question is, why has he lost dang near half his value in the past 30 days? There's 2 things that, before I turn over to you, that I could maybe hypothesize here. The first is his pop count is starting to rise. I think it's like at 587 now. So I don't know if people are looking at that and kind of maybe having the Kaprizov effect a little bit on his values. And then the other thing I've been thinking about, Troy, is it kind of like the Makar effect, if that would be a good way to put it, where now you have Makar come in and he's just brilliant in every sort of way. And then on the heels of that, the following Rookie of the Year is, not the following Rookie of the Year, there's a year in between, but because Kaprizov won the Calder, but now you got another rookie coming in with amazing potential. And is the hype and expectations so high that Seider just couldn't possibly live up to them, and now people are starting to realize that he's not Cale Makar.
Yeah, and if I remember right, on the social media post, he was one of those players, he didn't really see a dip right in the offseason because we had Series 2 come out, and he was one of the big chases in Series 2, so that's probably helped him just from that standpoint until the season started, and now people they might be panicking. I don't know what's going on. Like, you see 0 points in 3 games or whatever, and I think that probably helped bump him up or keep his value steady. And now once the season starts, people obviously I think are panic mode or irrational, or I don't know. I mean, obviously some might be a smart play if he continues to have no points, but.
Well, I think you're onto something about the timing of Series 2, right? It was I can't remember exactly when, but some point in June. And then you look at like his PSA 10 Young Gun, the high sale was at some point in July for like $510. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense, right? Because that's probably one of the first back from PSA And you're always going to get those early adopters, or I don't know what you call people that do that, but that go in hard for the card that they want, and cost almost doesn't matter. And so I'm not surprised that it's down from that part. But when you look at, so here we're recording this on October 19th. If you look at what happened between September 19th and October 19th to lose 40% of its value.
You started playing hockey.
Yeah. And maybe not living up to the hype. And we did get a bunch of good response back from, and I think had a good conversation on the social post. So it'll just be interesting to watch. And I guess if I can make one more, point on the Makar comparison, one of the things I was thinking of today in that regard is, in addition to Makar coming in 2019, we also had Adam Fox, right, who won the Norris before Makar did. And you look at, and he's a great young defenseman as well, and very offensive minded. We look at the difference between Makar's values, about what, $800-900 for a PSA 10 versus Fox, which is in the $200 range. Right? Maybe Mo Seider is more comparative to Adam Fox than he is Cale Makar. And $200 at this point is a fair and representative value of where he should be. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good hypothesis, and it'll be interesting to watch as the season goes, how his prices kind of react and his season plays out. And like you said, again, this is early. I don't think
3 games.
Yeah, I don't think the sky's falling, even though the prices seem like that. But I think we need more of a body of work before I panic.
If you PC Cider, or you're a Detroit fan or collector, this is amazing. Because you might have thought after July and August that his young guns would be in the Makar range right now, $600, $700, $800, and at $200. That seems pretty palatable. The other thing that we'll have to keep watching, I guess the last point I'll make, is where does the pop counts continue to go from here? Could they, over the next 3 months, get into the 1,500 to 2,000 range, kind of like we saw those take off for Kaprizov too? Okay, hobby news. A lot of stuff to go over this week. Did you see, before I sent it to you, Troy, I think it was a gentleman named Hit 'em High Sports Cards on Instagram who had sent a really nice card, a 2012 Wayne Gretzky red PMG into BGS for grading?
I did not see the story until you sent it to me, though, and then I read up on it.
Gotcha. Okay, so this guy sends a card into BGS, good enough to share his experience, and card came back. I'm assuming the grade was not what he expected. Examines the card, and in the lower left corner sees a big chip in the card. Now, he had, I think probably because it's a really nice card, and I don't know, maybe he takes pictures of all his cards, but he had some really good before pictures, and you can distinctly see that the chip in the bottom left corner was not there, presumably before he sent it to BGS. In particular, this situation resonated with me, as you know, Troy, because I'm currently having a little issue with PSA that I'm trying to resolve, where I sent in a number of months ago a beautiful 1973 Topps Roberto Clemente. So it's his last baseball card before he unfortunately passed away. And really important card, I guess, in baseball history. The condition was amazing. It was a little bit off-centered, so it wouldn't have been a 10, but maybe could have been a 9, almost assuredly an 8. The corners were amazing. The edges were sharp. I had lots of offers from people in card shops to buy it raw. And when I got the card back, I look at the grade and it's a 5. And I'm like, what? 5? And it takes me a second to examine the card, and both top corners are like bent in half. And my heart sank, because this is one of my favorite sports cards. I get it's not a hockey card, and it's such a beautiful piece of history in my mind. So I at first didn't know what to do, and then I contacted PSA, and like I said, we're working through it. I also had before pictures of the card too. And I guess the main reason, Troy, why I want to bring this up is through my own experience, through looking at Hit 'em High's unfortunate experience with his Wayne Gretzky PMG. I think that there's a couple reminders that we can give people, or ideas to protect yourself, because I'm guessing it's not real frequent. So I don't want to put it in anyone's mind that PSA or SGC or BGS is going to wreck your cards. I'm sure it happens rarely and frequently, but it doesn't happen. And so I guess my best advice to anyone sending a card in for grading is I would definitely take very good before pictures before you send it in. Have good lighting. Make sure the photo quality is clear. Make sure you get all corners. Make sure you get both sides. I would coin it. Most of the grading companies, when you submit or do a submission, that you print on a piece of paper the order number. I might even put the card by that.
Yeah, I'd probably do that because if people don't know what he's saying when he says coining, I think this was a practice maybe from eBay or a while ago where you would
Facebook more.
Yeah, Facebook. So they knew that you didn't take like a fake or a picture you found online. They'd have you like put a coin or write your name or something by it, just so you know it's not a picture from somewhere else that you're trying to say you're going to sell. That's what the card looks like. It's giving some proof that it's your card.
I would even probably go as far now, having my own experience with my Roberto Clemente, in taking video too. Just have all the evidence you can in case something happens. Because what kills me about, and I have one, I would call it a mediocre photo of my Clemente, which isn't, I'm not super excited about that. And the part that just kills me is I kind of feel like within PSA, we're in a my word versus their word situation. And the difference in a PSA 5 1973 Roberto Clemente and a PSA 9 is massive. You have to acknowledge there's a risk when you send in a card, albeit probably very small, like I said, and you just want to do whatever you can to protect yourself and the value of the card that you're submitting. But it's a bummer. So I feel bad for Hit 'em High, because tough to replace a 2012 Wayne Gretzky red PMG. It's not a Cole Caulfield Young Guns or something like that.
Yeah, and those cards are so touchy to begin with, and then having it a good copy that you send in to get graded and have it come back with a chip. I mean, that stinks. And obviously, the point of this kind of conversation is just make sure you do what you can to try to prove what you have before you send it in and the conditions. So if something like this does happen on the small chance, maybe that helps you with your recourse and getting a resolution with the problem.
Mm-hmm. Continuing our buyer beware theme here. Saw today that
kind of negative today.
I know. we'll turn it around, Troy. Just believe.
Just believe.
So I saw today a Michigan man got 2.5 years in prison for selling fake sports cards. It's a 57-year-old man named Brian Kennert. So this all started when a couple went to an antique store where Brian was, I guess, evidently selling some old baseball card packs, and he was selling them as authentic and unopened. The couple, I think, probably did what we all do when we think there's a deal, and went on their phone and looked on eBay and thought they found an amazing deal. So snatched them up, and I guess they ended up going back to him a number of times, in total spending $44,000 with him on some old, presumably sealed baseball card packs. At some point, it looks like they went to authenticate these. I don't know if it was a grading company or through another service, and were probably pretty shocked to find that they were not only resealed, but the cards within them, I think, were fake. And it was probably a big enough scale where, I don't know if authorities would get involved over $100 card, but over $44,000. The authorities got involved, and eventually federal authorities raided this guy's home. And within there, they found $7.3 million of, I don't know if street value is the word, or eBay value, or golden value, whatever you want to call it, of fake cards, and a whole bunch of equipment to manufacture fake cards and to seal packs and all this sort of stuff. Brian's obviously caught here, and he ends up admitting that he's not only selling fake cards, but he's been doing it for 30 years and to the tune of about $100,000 a year in profit. So the first thing that stood out to me is, given the scale which this guy defrauded people, a little surprising to me, only got 30 months essentially in prison.
Yeah, this gets back to probably it's a white collar crime. And obviously, sometimes sentences for those are less. Obviously, not a lawyer, no legal experience whatsoever. But when I heard of the 30 months, it seemed low. And I can't wrap my head around what this guy was doing. Having all this equipment, making cards is what it sounds like. I mean, this is on a whole nother level of faking stuff. And
he's making $100,000 a year.
It's crazy. But yeah, 30 months seems a little light, especially he'll probably get out before then. They might give him good behavior or go home monitoring or do something like that. But I mean, I'm glad he got caught. I'm sad that obviously this couple got ripped off, and probably over 30 years. A bunch of people got ripped off, which stinks.
Yeah. So again, we bring it up because it is kind of a little bit of an interesting story, I guess, but also to remind people that there's continues to be no shortage of scammers out there. We've talked about fake patches. We've talked about, I think, fake autographs at some point, and now just faking the whole shebang here and faking the cards. To me, Troy, the big takeaway is the number one rule that I would hope people remember is if you come across a deal that is just too good to be true, don't see like jackpot or dollar signs. You got to go into like critical thinking at that point. And I'm not saying that maybe it isn't a great deal out there, and they do happen, but I would guess 90+% of the time when you find somebody selling something for $100 that's worth $1,000, I would be very wary and skeptical of that.
Yeah, it's if you see a deal that seems too good, just go into it with a healthy dose of skepticism. Be skeptical.
Take time, have them authenticated, do whatever you need to do to protect yourself, because once you hand over the cash, then you're stuck with whatever you got. It's not the first and last time we'll run into something like this, but it's a good opportunity for us all to remind ourselves that, like I said, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Okay, let's get a little more positive here. It's on Instagram today. This is cool. This made me happy. That Upper Deck has a kiosk at Canadian Tire Center, the home of the Ottawa Senators, where they're selling hockey cards in an NHL arena. Pretty awesome, huh?
That is pretty awesome. I hope we have a listener in Ottawa that can write us or send us a message on this. What I want to know is, did this happen last year? Is this brand new? And if so, can they just admit that they heard our podcast where we gave the suggestions to Upper Deck? And I think that was one of them. Or was it they might have had this at other rinks. I'm curious if this is the first time they've done it at a rink or they've had it at other rinks. Because obviously, like you said, bravo. I love this idea. I love that Upper Deck did this. That's awesome.
As much as I would love it to be our idea, I'm guessing the timing.
Yeah,
it's probably not something that they put together in 3 months.
No, and they've sold cards at other venues. It's not like this is brand new. Like they've always sold them in the packs at a card shop. It's just kind of funny. It's not funny. It's awesome to see.
Well, it's a good target audience, that's for sure.
Yep.
The one thing I don't get about it, I have to admit, is I don't know if I'm the type that, and I know a lot of people do this and like this. I'm not knocking it. This is just potato, what I like to do. I don't see myself ripping packs at a sports arena. Do you?
I could see myself ripping packs if I somehow ended up in a suite where I could have some space, be around like people I know, but I wouldn't buy a box and go back to my seat and sit there and try to rip, which I've seen. There's videos online at baseball stadiums and stuff where people do this. They go buy.
Well, people do it all the time.
Yeah.
I just go I'm Norwegian and Irish, and the Norwegian side kicks in where it's all practical. Well, how would you do this or that? And I think,
how you sleeving and top loading if you didn't bring them.
Do I have to bring like 75 supplies with me? So I'm not, because otherwise I would be sitting there with my cards like for 3 hours, panicked that something was going to get on them or someone was going to bump me and ding the corner. I just think I would get a lot of anxiety doing it that way. And I can't speak for obviously every NHL arena, but we know at Excel, there's not a lot of room.
No.
Where the Wild play. So it would give me anxiety, but I know people love it and kudos to them. But it does make me very happy that Upper Deck is doing that and exposing more and more hockey fans to sports cards. That's a very good thing.
Yeah, okay, I'm guessing too. You could just buy the box and carry that around with you and then rip when you get home too. I'm guessing.
Rip when you get home. That's if I did anything, that's what I probably do. Okay. Let's talk about the Expo a little bit. We're going to begin wrapping up our coverage as we get closer and closer to the November 10th start of the Toronto Sports Card episode. We've never been. We're going. We're pumped. There is a couple Expo-related news items. They recently announced their final, and to me, a really big guest for autographs, Mr. Teemu Selanne. What do you think of that one, Trey?
That's pretty cool. I always liked him as a player. I liked when he had the bubble helmet.
He's got one of the best names ever, too. Can we admit that?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty awesome. I think he was a great hockey player, but probably had no problem finding a girlfriend with a sweet name like Teemu Selanne. I'm just guessing. We can also I think we're speaking at the Expo where deals are shaky there, but oh my gosh, if you want to come and hear us be total gong show idiots about hockey cards and you're going to the Expo, maybe look forward to that. We'll have more details on that soon. But I have one goal for us today. I don't know if you saw this in the show notes. And this is kind of embarrassing because we're from Minnesota, which is almost all Native American names. Well, the name Minnesota itself is a Native American name. And there's videos galore of people trying to pronounce Minnetonka and all the other Minnesota town names that nobody can get. And apparently, as we've been pointed out to us by a lot of people, we have a problem pronouncing the Toronto suburban area where the expo is located. So I phonetically wrote it out in our show notes, Troy, and we're going to practice together.
Say it first, because now I'm going to be so self-conscious. I never want to say it. I never want to say the city name again.
Mississauga.
Okay,
I think I nailed it.
Mississauga. All right.
No, it's not Sioux. It's Sa. Mississauga.
Today on the English speaking podcast, we are learning how to say Mississauga.
For the next hour and 13 minutes on the podcast, we're going to go back and forth and say Mississauga.
I'm going to let you say it from now on. You get to say it. I'm almost positive I saw an Instagram comment come on that we got with it phonetically spelled out, but I couldn't find it. So I don't know if the person deleted it or I totally botched it.
I'm pretty sure we were saying Mississauga.
Yeah, I'm sure we were. Like a bunch of
I feel like that's what we were doing, where it's Mississauga. I'm probably saying it wrong. You're giving me the benefit of the doubt right now that I'm actually pronouncing it right. So I'm going to go with that and watch. We'll have 700 messages.
Yeah, so apology to anyone from there that lives there. Sorry, I probably butchered it horribly last week, so I apologize.
So the Toronto Sports Card episode in Mississauga, Ontario, is November 10th through 13th. How did I do? I think for our homework, we should each wake up in the morning, brush our teeth, and practice saying Mississauga 10 times each, so we don't sound like more idiots than we already are. Again, super excited. We're going to have some guests on to talk about the expo. Can't wait. We do, though, because it's Thursday on our new schedule, have a number of card show shoutouts to do. So I'm going to roll through those quick. A reminder, though, we want to help promote local shows, especially as the market may be a little bit down and people are worried that have hockey cards. So if you are participating, setting up, know of a show, hosting a show, whatever, however you're involved, please send us that information and we will add it to our notes and make sure that we talk about it on the podcast. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we have 5. Sports Card and Collectible Show at the Duluth Miller Hill Mall in Duluth, Minnesota from October 21st to the 23rd, Friday and Saturday. Friday and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Sunday to 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Anyone who's in Duluth knows where the Miller Hill Mall is, so check out the show there. There's also a Sport Card and Collectible Show in Center Mall, Sioux Center, Iowa on October 22nd, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sports Card Show at the Fan Zone in St. Cloud or Waite Park, Minnesota on October 23rd, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Dugout Sports Card Collector Show sent to us by our friend Beanball Breaks on October 29th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Stony Creek Hotel and Conference Center, 2601 South Providence Road in Columbia, Missouri. So that one's in Missouri. And then the Dallas Card Show, which is November 3rd through 6th. You can go to DallasCardShow.com for more info. It's a big show, 700 tables. I don't know if that one's super great for hockey. If anyone goes to that one in particular, please let us know if there's more hockey.
Yeah, I think
I'd be interested to know that.
Yeah, Beanball, I think, sent us that one too. And he did say it did have a lot of hockey I believe he said it had hockey or a lot of hockey. And that one, we didn't go to the website if you want to see all the admission stuff. They have so many VIP packages and stuff. I didn't even feel like we need to read them out. Any of these ones in Minnesota at these malls are more than likely free, I'm guessing.
It's hard to charge to get into a mall, yeah. Right? Okay, let's move on. We had an interesting, I don't know what you call it, like a case study or stumbled onto something where I was trying to do a social post for our guy, the bread man here, who's killing it at the start of the season. And I wanted to do his top card sales and was going through in Card Ladder, the top sales, and noticed that, I'm like, wait a minute, there's multiple 2015 Ultimate Collection NHL Shield patch auto RPA, I'm butchering that, 101s, right? Like, how is this possible? Is this the card that sold twice? Then I zoom in and I find that it's not the same card. It's totally different cards.
It was totally different card.
I'm confused. It's like, well, it's the same year. It's the same set. It's the Rookie Shield Patch Auto 1 of 1, and there's multiple of them. So ditched our idea of top Panarin sales, and you may have saw on Instagram or Facebook our post about this, where we said something to the effect of your rookie Shield Patch Auto 101 might not be as rare as you quite think. And had a number of people reach out to us and found out that I think in that year, there's 4 for both McDavid and Panarin rookie patch Shield 101s. Now, I think maybe 1 or 2 is an autoed. It really made us think, and we had a long conversation about this the other day that we wanted to kind of bring to the podcast and maybe hope to continue and further the discussion is, if you think about, okay, there's 4 versions of this card, and this is Ultimate Collection. What other sets are there NHL Shield Patch Auto 101s? Obviously, we know there's going to be some in the Cup, right? And I guess to me, it just strikes a little bit like if I'm opening a pack of the Cup or a tin of the Cup or a box of Ultimate Collection, and I hit I guess, or in this case, a Panarin rookie NHL Shield Patch Auto 1 of 1, I'm thinking I've hit like the penultimate card for this player. And then when you find out that, well, there's 3 other ones in this set, and there's a couple, 2 or 3 in the Cup, and I don't know what other sets too. It just kind of, I don't know what the word is, like dilutes or waters it down for me. And it begs the question, if you take any player like Jack Hughes or Cale Makar or Panarin or anyone, 20 within the last 5-6 years, what is their like apex card? Like if you said, I got tons of dough, I want to own the best card that the hobby would generally accept as, okay, you're right, this is the best of this card, what would it be? And I'll give one more example, Troy, before I get your thoughts. So I thought, well, it was just to make sure that this wasn't just 2015. I looked at the last round of the Cup in 2019, and again, it's a little confusing. So I looked at Makar. There's basically 3 101 NHL Shield rookies. There's a base rookie auto Shield 101, a base Shield patch 101. So again, I get it, no auto, but maybe you could argue, should there be that distinction? But then there's the exquisite collection rookie auto Shield 1 of 1. Like I said, so if you look at, in that case, which one would be considered his apex rookie? I might have the opinion, because I'm a big exquisite fan, that the exquisite should be more valuable, sought after, desired, considered the penultimate Cale Makar rookie. I don't know. What do you think of all this?
So I've went back and forth on this a lot, and when we've talked about it, because it was almost like a Eureka thing on the phone. We were actually on the phone talking about it, looking at it, and we spent like 20 minutes going back and forth through Card Ladder and looking at these pictures. And at the time, I was like, well, man, that kind of stinks. I wish I had if I pulled a 101, I wish that was kind of the only one. But the more I think about this, I don't mind that there's 101s in each different kind of set. That to me is fine. Obviously, have your Premier 101 rookie patch Shield, whatever. Have the Cup 101. I'm kind of leaning that it doesn't bother me. It adds another chase, or it adds an opportunity for other people to hit a 101. But I'm wondering if that is more, I'm not the biggest investor or flipper on this stuff. And obviously if I was, and I pulled a 101 and then kind of seeing these other ones that are out there too, maybe that would affect me more. But I guess at the end of the day, I'm not as disturbed about it as I thought I would be. Or that I was at the beginning when I thought about it. But the more I thought about it, I think I'm okay with it. I think I'm a different opinion of you, but I think I'm okay. I think I can live with it.
I understand you having that perspective, and I don't know if it's just my personality, where I think that like my brain craves order. There's something else that I think is along these lines that has always bugged me about hockey cards is going back to all the different brands, and we're going to talk about brands next when we can get around to doing our next 101. But it's like, I want a hierarchy of brands. Like, I want to know, what's the cheapest and most printed to the most exclusive, right? So when a set comes out, I have a really good understanding, not just a loose one. And the example I give here is like, what's the difference between Ultimate Premier and Ultimate and Premier? Like, I don't even know, as much as we've spent digging into hockey cards, I think Ultimate's considered a little bit higher than Premier, but maybe some would disagree with that. I don't know. There just isn't like a definitive order to that. Mm-hmm. And I apply the same thing to this card issue. If I'm looking at a Cale Makar, if I want to understand what the top most exclusive, elusive, however you want to put it, Cale Makar card is, I don't want to have to do like a giant mental exercise to figure out which version of the same card that exists in multiple sets is considered the penultimate Cale Makar rookie card. Does that make sense to you?
No, that I totally agree with that. I just had the flashback of was it the Charlie Day meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got the board behind him and he's trying to figure out like the conspiracy theory, and it looks like you got your flow chart of all the different, you got the brand hierarchy and then you have the card hierarchy in that brand, because like with the cup there, I think it was the cup where you had exquisite, the bases and stuff. Yeah, I get that perspective. Like and this gets back to what the question is, what is the true one of one? I don't have an answer. It does, like I said, it doesn't bother me that there are, but I get your perspective. Like if you pull it, you'd probably want to know where you're at in that hierarchy, just from a value perspective too. And
maybe there's something we don't know, so someone can reach out and educate us on that. I would personally say the exquisite to me, but that again, I have to acknowledge my love affair with the exquisite brand, so I'm very tainted in that regard. I also want to mention, though, quickly before we move on, that this is yet another case and another example of where it benefits, especially when you're spending money in this hobby, to not lean on your impulse, which admittedly for me is a problem. I just like to get it. Once I see something I like, I want to get it. Do your research. So if you see you're at a card show and you see one of these cards, and in your mind you're thinking, oh my God, this is the one of one card of this player, step away or sit there, open up your phone, go to Cardboard Connection or Beckett, look at the checklist and really have a good understanding of what you're buying, especially before you fork over. These cards can go for a lot of money. Yeah. None of them are cheap.
No.
Right? But they can get up there in a hurry. So it's just, I think, best to be informed and have a really good understanding of what you're buying. New product releases. This is the
part of the episode where Josh gets frustrated.
I lose my mind. And actually, I'm more confused than ever. And we're going to ask people for help, because the one thing I found has me so confused right now. And maybe you'll look up while we're talking, because I don't know if you even saw this yet today, Troy. But it appears that the next release will likely be no checklist out yet, so that's the caveat. Upper Deck CHL. Okay. Right now on both US sites and Canadian sites, it's looking like early November 2 release. So again, I go look up the checklist and can't find it. But then I'm thinking, it's like, well, do we really care about CHL? Should we talk about it? But oh yeah, we got this Bedard kid that seems to have the whole world aflutter, and that may make it interesting enough to at least talk about it. But then I wanted to make sure that, or I guess I didn't know, because I don't follow CHL products real closely, is that would this be the first year that there's a Bedard card in the CHL set, or was it in previous years? So I go to Card Ladder, search for Connor Bedard, I called him Connor McDavid. Oh my gosh, Freudian slip there. Connor Bedard CHL cards, and I find a whole bunch of star rookies, right, which is kind of the base rookie in the CHL set for 2021-22. And I'm like, huh? Even going back to last month, how can there be 2021-2022 Upper Deck CHL Connor Bedard star rookies when the set hasn't come out? Then I'm thinking, well, I must have, maybe it's the 2022 CHL set coming out. Nope. I go back to David Adams. I go back to Klaus and Chara. On November 2nd, the 2021-2022 Upper Deck CHL set comes out. So I've checked both these Bedard cards. Oh, there's a pun, a rhyme. And the expected release of 2021-2022 CHL. And I don't get how there's a whole bunch of Connor Bedard star rookies out on the secondary market for a set that hasn't been released yet. So long story short here, what am I missing? Now, this is like also a 45-minute exercise today where my head almost exploded.
Yeah, I was just looking while you were talking, trying to figure something out. And I found there was 21-22 game use or SP game use CHL, but I don't think that's out. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So
yeah, I haven't went and looked at the eBay listings for the Connor Bedard star rookies. and looked at the back of the card to whatever, and it says 2021-22 CHL or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it did come out in a different set.
Yeah, that's what was it. Maybe an insert in something, or
I don't know.
Is where if anyone listening knows, please share with us.
Yeah. Lest you think we're experts on hockey cards, we've just proven how little, in fact, we probably know. Okay, so in some capacity, the 2021-22 Upper Deck CHL release looks to be in early November. Beyond CHL is still a mystery if anything's going to come out between now and Series 1 release. Hearing lots of possibilities. I've heard like 5 different. There's no tech list. There's nothing credible. So I guess we're just kind of wait and see. My theory, though, on Series 1, which is probably pretty Captain Obvious for most, though, where the quote-unquote holding date right now is November 10th. I'm pretty confident, Troy, that will be the day because that's also the start of the expo. And it just seems that all the lines are lining up where that would be probably a good thing for Upper Deck.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to bet, I think Series 1 comes out November 10th, but I don't think that's a big stretch by any means. Well, now it's time for our first mailbag segment.
I'm really nervous.
I'm kind of excited.
I'm really nervous.
Are you nervous?
I'm nervous about mailbag.
We had a good response, so thank you to everyone really that responded and asked questions. So I think we're going to alternate answering questions. So Troy will go first, then I'll go, and we'll see how we do. Okay, do you want to go? I'll read the question, and then you go first on the first one, then I'll take the second one first. Does that make sense?
No.
All right, you just do what I tell you to do.
I think we both chime in, though. I don't want us to. I don't know. No.
It's just one person answers first, and then the other. So we're not repeating ourselves.
Gotcha.
All right, both on ice from Instagram asked 2 questions, 2 very good ones. What do you think the ideal gem rate of a young gun should be, Troy?
I have no idea. I said off the top of my head, 40% is what popped into my mind. However, I'm not really sure there's a good answer. I know it probably can't be, or do we want it? We don't want it 100%. I know what I don't want, but what should the gem rate be? And 40% is a number that popped into my head. Now, if I was really smart, I would have done math and came up with all these great numbers to say, oh, this could be the possible population count, but I didn't do that. So that's what I thought.
If you did math, you'd have to accuse Backyard Breaks of getting all the good cards.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so I said 50%. To me, it kind of strikes the balance. Get it? It's half and half. But the chance of, when you're ripping cards, pulling a gem mint or buying a card in the secondary market, I think it also would help control pop counts of where you have like cards like Austin Matthews with almost a 70% gem rate. That feels a little too high to me. And I think at the end of the day, over time, too, that would help potentially bring back the value of PSA 9. So, yeah, I said 50%. Okay, next question. What assumptions, thoughts about the hobby did you have before starting the podcast that you've since changed your opinion of? I'll go here first.
Okay.
Number 1, great question. I'll start by saying, Bolts, that I wish I had a better answer for you than just the plain truth. We literally had no plan when we started this podcast. So when you asked what assumptions we had, our plan was, hey, do you want to do a podcast? And we went and bought microphones and recorded an episode and put it up. We just thought it'd be something fun to try. And then people started listening and we were like, oh my. I guess the best way that I could describe this or put this for people, our experience with the podcast so far, is we're really just riding the wave and kind of holding on for dear life and seeing where the show takes us. I guess that's my 2 cents. What do you think, Troy?
Yeah, so I really like this question, and I took it. Maybe I'm answering the question I want to answer, but I would say when we started, I was really nervous that, and I don't know if this wasn't, maybe it was an assumption I had listening to other shows or looking at Facebook groups. I was just really nervous that a lot of people would just say, you have no idea what you're talking about, and kind of tell us we're morons. And, you talk about the crisis of confidence or imposter syndrome and all that stuff. But however, totally wrong. I think the feedback we have got has been awesome. The positive feedback's great. Even the critical feedback, we appreciate it. And no one's been outright mean. And I love that. It all comes from a place of helping and supporting and getting us to be better. So that was one thing that I was really happy with, how kind of we've progressed. And then I think the other thing that I probably didn't realize is just how many actual collectors, and we've talked about this with like Jeremy Lee, he brought this up, how many collectors are in the hockey card hobby. I think I had a perspective coming in listening to other stuff and seeing other sports where it seemed like all it was, flipping, investing, all that stuff, where I was a collector. I love collecting. And I think getting that kind of feedback and seeing all the collectors and all the cool stuff that's out there has just been awesome.
Great answer, Troy. It's very heartfelt.
Yeah,
I got a little emotional sitting here. Okay, so Levis Cards on Instagram, he asked, what players from the last two to three crops, I'm guessing of rookies, do you see having a breakout season like Jason Robertson last year? Guys with $5 to $10 young guns, but super high potential. So I'm going to give an answer here, and I'm going to kind of answer, I think, what I get the gist of Levis's question, but I do want to make a point of maybe clarification. I totally get why he's asking the question, right? That's our all dream, right? Find something really cheap that ends up being really valuable. But I think where I start on this is most players as young guns are $5 to $10 are that for a reason, right? There's no way to hide as a hockey player in today's world with instant communication and videos and social media and all that sort of stuff. And so if there's not a lot of hype around you, it means that you don't probably have the pedigree or skill sets that suggest that you're going to be the next Austin Matthews. So I don't know if there's a $2 young gun that's going to be worth $400 2 years from now. But again, getting more to the spirit of his question, I think there are a number of cards that are maybe $2 to $3 now that have maybe potential to be $20 or $30 in a couple of years. And a couple that I really like, one I've talked about recently, Logan Thompson, who's 2021 young gun. And because of Robin Lehner's hip injury, is now the starting goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights and pretty good team. And, maybe a dark horse Calder candidate, even though they lost last night, which stinks. So that's one I like. Another one is Mason Marchment, who's a 2020 young gun. And I guess the theme on both of these guys to me, and how one of the ways I try to look at players that have low values that have a good chance to increase are they're both put into different situations this year. So Logan Thompson thrust into the starting role. Mason Marchment gets traded from Florida to Dallas and now is in a new environment, new situation, has a new opportunity with that team. And he's, to this point, taken advantage of it too. So those are two guys I would mention. You didn't have any thoughts there, right?
No, I'm piggybacking off yours. I've mentioned some in previous episodes, but I'll fully admit I'm not the greatest at the whole super cheap players that are maybe see some increase in value. So I kind of piggybacked off your answer and said,
well, you're more the PC guy,
yeah,
and I'm more the investor guy. And I think that's hopefully what makes a good balance for our show. But I could see why you're not having a real refined opinion there.
Say great. I get great answer, Josh. Great question too.
Thanks, man. What are some lessons learned you have found in your first year podcasting about hockey cards?
All right.
Your turn, Troy.
I'll start. Well, I appreciate the sentiment that we'll make it a year, but we've only been in 5 months. 5 months. So, I'll say in the first 5 months. So I actually wrote down a couple things because all the questions have been really good. First one was the off-season dip is real. Always heard about it, but seeing the work that kind of Josh did on it, it definitely showed that is a true statement, and it affects the hockey card hobby as well. So that was my first card. One. Yeah, that was my first one. My second point that lesson learned, research, and do more research of your purchases. Obviously, we kind of touched on the scammy, bad stuff, but even you have so many tools at your disposal to make a good purchase. You have whatever, if you got Card Ladder, you got eBay, you got Facebook groups, there's just so many avenues that you can do research. Use them. Third one is, I was actually surprised at just how many outlets, I kind of touched on this on the last question, how many outlets there are to buy cards and to discuss hockey cards. I always knew there was stuff out there, but the amount just kind of was a little overwhelming once you start getting into it. My fourth lesson learned is, this is kind of a self-learning kind of thing. It is very easy to be critical on products. We all do it. I am just as vocal on how I don't like it when we get like collation mistakes or cards come out dinged. And it was just part of it too, is recognizing I got to take a step back and realize it's not a perfect industry. There's going to be issues that arise, and to just remember that mistakes happen, and you got to either get past it and offer suggestions, but don't dwell on it. My fifth one I thought was, if I have a question around a hockey card, and this took a lot of convincing myself, if I have a question, it's not a dumb question, and someone else probably has it. So that's kind of led to a lot of the discussion on our podcast of topics. It's like, well, I think this question, and then like Josh will be like, oh yeah, let's research that. And you find out people from feedback we get that people have the same questions we do. And then my last one is people are very passionate about grading companies. Holy cow, are they passionate about grading companies and who should grade what? Obviously, I don't have a passion around the grading companies. I say go whoever you want. I don't care who you use. But man, some people are very passionate about that. All right, Josh.
So it's kind of funny. The last sort of question about like what we've learned or assumptions, I think I have a similar answer to your answer on that. Boy, that makes no sense. Mm-hmm. But okay, I think you'll get it. So for me, the biggest lesson that I've learned is, again, going back to what you said, Troy, is that we had a little bit of fear of, would we have to be experts, or would people assume that we're experts in starting a hockey card podcast? And I personally don't like the term expert because it implies that there's nothing left for you to learn on any subject. And one of my favorite things about doing this is how much we get to learn about a hobby that we really enjoy and love. And the fact that people have been receptive to that has been really amazing. And then the other thing that I put, Troy, is that the power in reaching out to people. Mm-hmm. We've been embraced by so many people that we've had, I guess, the nerve to reach out to and introduce ourselves. And that's opened a lot of doors for us. And so as you're navigating through the hobby, don't be afraid, whether it's to reach out to us or to anybody else, and introduce yourself. And I think you'll be amazed at what you find that happens. Next question. This comes from Case Hits Reed from the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord, show supporter. I like the addition of guests to the show structure. What is the... I laugh. What is the... I'm sorry, Reed, it's not you. It's the notion of plan. What is the general plan of guests going forward? Type of guest? Is it going to be once a week, etc.? This implies that, again, that there's a plan. If anyone else could see the inside of our going, it is not even close to being that structured. But I'll let you tackle this one first because I think it's your turn, Troy.
Yeah, so I went really quick on this one. I would say we bring on guests who speak about topics that we are interested in ourselves and are good and relevant topics for the hobby in general and the hockey card hobby in general. I would say we have no set schedule. Feedback has really been good on the guests we've gotten and that we've had on the show. So we obviously plan to have guests. Like we've talked about Toronto Expo, Fall Expo coming up. We're going to get some guests on that can speak to that. But there's no schedule, but we will still have guests depending on just topics we're thinking about and what's coming up in the hockey card hobby.
I think that's a good way to put it. If there's anything I could add, maybe it's a little more context. And I was glad, Reed, that you asked this question because we do have gotten some other questions about why we choose to have certain guests or when do we choose to have guests, those sort of things. First off, we have a loose plan for our shows. In general, we talk about a few weeks in advance, maybe more thematically about what we want to talk about. And we kind of base our guests on sort of what themes we have coming up and frankly, who we know and who might be willing to come on our show. So a great example here, like I think we mentioned a few minutes ago, is we've got the Expo coming up in a few weeks. So we're going to have a few guests that are going to help us as Expo newbies try to learn what to expect and make sure that we're ready to take advantage of our time there. And, the last thing I'll say is ultimately, Troy, you would definitely agree with this, that we feel the best show we can make is the one that's most true to us, the show that we want to make. And that's kind of been our mentality, is let's make the show around the content that we find most interesting and hope people will find it interesting too. Versus, yep. I think if we tried to make a show that was, well, what do we think people want to hear? I think that would be a bad show. I don't know if there's any other way to put it than that. I guess that's how I feel. Okay. Oh boy. Sergey Kostitsin, 74 on Instagram. Sorry, butchered that. How much will Laffy and Kirill Cup rookies need to sell for cup cases to be quote unquote fair value at 1,700 Canadian a tin? It's a good question. I guess my turn to go first. So I try to think of who's the best comparison and what are they selling for? And I don't know if you'll agree with this, Troy. I'm sure many won't. But to Laffy and Kaprizov, I think Jack Hughes, to me, might be the closest comparison from the prior year. I think Makar is ahead of those guys. So I don't know if I personally put them on the same level. A Hughes Cup RPA out of 99 last sold for about $3,300. I guess my short answer is buy them on the singles market, because I don't know, it's going to be a tough chase hitting one of those big rookies. And at 1,700 Canadian, or what does that translate to? 1,250, 1,300 US dollars. It's going to be a tough chase. So if you're looking for ROI, buy cards on the singles market. If you always wanted to rip the cup and have that experience, do that. If you really want to rip but don't want to risk 1,700 Canadian or 1,250 US dollars, then maybe get into a break. What are your thoughts on this?
That's exactly my thoughts. I did almost the same thing you did. I kind of went and looked at history of some players that were relevant, and then I kind of landed. I saw that your number of 3,300. Then I gave it a premium bump because it's new and they'll sell for more because it's a new product. And I said, I don't know, 5,000 was the number I came up with. So people tell me if I'm nuts, but that's just kind of what I landed on.
Yeah, it's just a guess. Okay, FD Hits on Instagram asks, what upcoming release are you both looking forward to the most? So before I let you answer, because I think you go first, to me the funny thing is neither of us could limit it to one, which just shows you that we're true hockey card collectors.
Yeah, so I'll go first. Obviously, this is kind of the Captain Obvious one, the Cup. It's been so long. We've been waiting for it, and it's the 2020-21, the Cup version. I can't wait for it to come out. I keep hoping we get the checklist here any day now, and it comes out in November, which we think. So that's obviously my first one. And then I listed some other ones. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the newer releases of OPG Platinum. Stature, I really liked Stature. I thought they were really cool looking cards. Artifacts, I really liked, so I'm looking forward to the next release of that. And then I've always liked the flagship series, so Series 1, 2 Extended. That's kind of my personal, what I'm looking forward to list. And obviously, I try to keep some of the stuff I'm looking forward to is more what can I buy for boxes personally. Obviously, the Cup, probably going to be out of my range, but we'll see. Well, maybe I'll get adventurous and buy one. But
so the number one for me is 2021-22 OPG Platinum. I love Platinum. Call me a sucker for shiny cards, maybe. It's just one of my favorite sets. So super excited about that. I keep watching almost daily to see if there's any movement on the release date front there. The other one I'm actually excited for this year, and I wasn't a huge fan of, I know it's only been out a couple years, is Allure. And I'm really intrigued by the color connected parallels that are going to be in the 2021-22 set. If you haven't seen those, go to Cardboard Connection or check them out. Basically, it's a rainbow of color parallels, but if you put them side by side, the designs would kind of all fit together, and it would be almost like a gradient, right, from one color.
Yeah, because you have card will be like a green yellow, and then the next pair will be a yellow blue, and the next one will be the blue red or whatever it is, and they all can.
So if you do collect the rainbow all side by side, it'll look amazing.
It's a true rainbow. It is a cool connected rainbow. I love the idea.
And I think another opportunity to rightfully give Upper Deck credit for trying something. I know maybe this has been done before and I just don't know about it, but it feels new to me, I guess. And I'm actually really hopeful that collectors will be going crazy for these, especially probably the more tougher chases. So looking forward to that. Next question. How can you help explain the crazy difference between Young Guns Raw versus Young Guns PSA 10 or Young Guns PSA 9? I'm glad you have to tackle or do I have to go first, or do you have to go first?
I think you go first.
Oh, God. If I could explain the difference, I would be president of the United States or own the stock market, or I don't know, but I'll do the best I can here. To me, my best explanation is that for some reason, everyone assumes a rock card's is a 10. Also, anything less than a graded 10 or gem mint will suffer a little bit when the market is down. So something has to give as there's downward pressure on the market, and it appears that the old girlfriend, the PSA 9, has been taking the brunt of it there. I still, though, do, Troy, have a long-term belief in graded PSA 9 cards. I do not have a short-term belief in them. But if you want to invest more dollars from whether it be PC or you're fine, spending $50 on a card and waiting 3 years on it, I think there could be some good values there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't have the greatest answer. My answer actually is kind of right around yours. I kind of said that I don't think anyone can explain the whole Raw versus PSA 9 right now, where you have cases of Raw selling more than PSA 9s. Again, I wrote down, it's almost like that assumption that a Raw card will grade a 10. And it's we're in this era of PSA 10 or bust. That's kind of feeds right into your opinion. I don't have a better explanation.
Another good question from Royal Sports Cards on Instagram. Will Platinum overtake SPA in demand / collectability in the coming years? Has it already done so? Your turn.
I'm going to be honest, I don't know. SP Authentic definitely took a hit this year, I think, with the collation issues, all the box issues with people not getting autographs. However, to me, the chase or the prestige of a Future Watch auto holds a ton of value and, I don't know, allure to it. It's a big chase. I like Platinum, but I don't see it overtaking SPA in demand. I guess from a price point maybe, but I think if Upper Deck cuts the price a little bit on SPA to make it a little more authentic, I think it still is a great product and has an awesome chase in it.
I think I agree with you. To me, a Future Watch auto is one of the 3 most important hockey cards a player has. So I would say if you had to deduce hockey card collecting to 3 cards, it would be a player's Young Guns, their Future Watch auto, and then their Cup rookie patch auto. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, sort of the trifecta of owning a player's most important card. So to go through the thought exercise, if SP were to be supplanted by Platinum, what card would supplant the Future Watch auto? And the closest thing I could come up with is the Seismic Gold, which is out of 50, right? It's much more limited. And I think there's a Seismic Gold auto version too, right? But I also think part of what makes the Future Watch auto so special is that it is out of 999, so it's a little bit more accessible than a card out of 50 would be. And again, this is where I go back to my brain craves order, right? So you have a Young Guns at its base level, which is not quite a base card, not quite a super rare card, so there's still a little bit of chase to it, but it's still readily accessible. Key thing with the Young Gun, though, of course, is there's no auto. So if you want the autograph version of a rookie card, then you jump up to the Future Watch auto, right? And then if you want the patch auto of a rookie card, then you go to the Cup RPA. So you'd almost have to, in my mind, replace that order with something from Platinum. But that being said, I love Platinum. It's what I just said is I can't wait for it to come out. And I love all the parallels, all the colors. I love shiny cars. I'm like a squirrel, apparently. But it's probably the best I can answer that. Okay. Kevin Peters, which is a better low-end Young Guns card to get? William Eklund or Cole Perfetti? It's kind of a tough one. But so what I decided to do here, and I'll take this one, Troy, is explain my thought process rather than just give an answer. Because ultimately, I don't think I really know the answer. There are ways, I think, that you can develop your own methodology to try to make any sort of decision like this. So here's how I would approach this. Do I have enough money for an Eklund or Perfetti? Which do I get? Again, first of all, predicting a prospect's future is almost impossible. Well, I have to assume, though, that by the nature of this question, it's an investment-related question, because if you're a collector, then you just get the player you like. Also, too, if you are in the prospecting game, one thing that I should mention is I think you should try to spread out your bets. So I would try to maybe buy 5 or 6 people using whatever methodology you have, hoping that 3 hit, or maybe you get lucky and 4 hit. So a couple of things that I'm looking at in this hypothetical situation. Pedigree, right? Have they produced at a high level at every level of hockey they've been at? Then I look at opportunity. Are they in the right situation to produce, generate hype, and create momentum for their card values, right? So that could be, are they on the right team? What line are they on, and how does that translate to time on ice? Are they getting power play opportunities? If they're a goalie, what percentage of starts do they get? Are they playing in the key high visible games? So if I take that methodology and look at Perfetti and Eklund, I'll start with Perfetti. One area of concern that I have on Cole is after a couple of great OHL seasons in 2018 and 2019, he's been a lower point producer per game in the AHL, international play, and NHL. Right. So I think that ideally you want people that translate their high level play to whatever level they go to. It's super early this year. They played a couple games. He's pointless. More concerning to me than that, though, he has 0 shots and about 15 minutes of average ice time in games. Not great, but 2 games. Positive on Perfetti is he's playing a top 6 and he's on the second power play unit. So he should have a lot of opportunity given that. If I look at Eklund, then really quick, he didn't make the team out of camp, was sent back to the AHL. Doesn't mean he won't be called back up, but still didn't do enough in camp to really lock down that spot on the team. Also, looking at his pedigree, he doesn't seem to have he's not a big goal scorer. So a majority of his points come through helpers, right? And you look at a guy like Jonathan Huberdeau, who's a very, very accomplished point producer, doesn't score a ton of goals, doesn't have a lot of, I don't think, long-term hobby upside. And so bottom line, both are probably pretty risky, but I would hedge maybe towards Perfetti in the short term, just because he has that immediate opportunity where he's playing right now. He's on the second line, or he's the top 6 forward, and he's on the second power play line. I don't know. What do you think of maybe not of Eklund or Perfetti? Do you agree with at least my methodology or approach?
Yeah, Troy? Definitely. I mean, that's the stuff you got to look at. If you're going to try to pick between two players, you got to have kind of some assumptions going into it. And I definitely agree with all those.
Okay, last question from Riley Newmeyer from Instagram. What are some of your favorite cards to invest in right now? Troy, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I said I'm not a big investor, but I do really like to collect autos, patches. Obviously, I've been called, I call myself, I'm an auto snob. I like having autos, preferably numbered cards, obviously. But if I go to the vintage stuff, I'm a total OPG snob. If I can get the OPG, I'll get the OPG.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I'm not the hugest investor, so I kind of turned this into a little more of a collecting answer without saying all my PC players or anything.
Sure. I want to start my answer by zeroing in on the last 2 words, right now, and piggybacking off of some buying or flipping advice that we gave in Monday's episode. I think it was, in that you have to be very short term. And because of that, from an investing standpoint, I think Young Guns are probably the way to go. There's a huge market for Young Guns. It's the most recognizable brand of card. They're very liquid, meaning they're easy to find, they're easy to get, they're easy to move. And where maybe a year ago you could look at 6-month investments or a year investments, the crystal ball is a little hazy right now as it relates to the market. And so I think the safer bet is to stick to Young Guns. For longer term, more PC stuff, I'm still leaning into that concept that I talked about before about replaceability and how easy, if I look at a card, I try to ask myself the question, how easily is this card replaced, right? So a seismic gold out of 50 versus maybe a Young Gun French, right, that have the same value, it's going to be a lot harder to replace the seismic gold than it would be to find the Young Gun. And so I'll try to lean towards that. So a lot of rare numbered kind of stuff. Well, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like
Mailbag.
I didn't realize we had so many questions. That's awesome. Thank you, everyone, for writing in. And we can't wait for the next one, next Thursday.
That is our show for this Thursday. Thank you all for listening. If you like the episode, please leave a rating review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you listen to us on. If you love the Gong Show and would like to support us, and love to chat with us on the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server, please consider donating $5 a month through Patreon. Become one of our out of 99 support level tier patrons. The link is in the show description or in our Instagram profile, or you can search Hockey Cards Gongshow from the Patreon website. If you're not following us on social media, we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Go to any of those platforms, search for Hockey Cards Gongshow, and you should find us. And lastly, the Hockey Cards Gongshow is a podcast, is a production of Dollar Box Ventures LLC. We'll see you on Monday. Have fun watching games.